Buongiorno, si Francesco. Buonanotte for me. Come fai?
Buona, you want to say buona?
Notte for me.
Oh, that's nice for you. Buonanotte, yeah. And this is morning for me.
Yeah.
Buon mattino e buonanotte.
I need more. I need more Duolingo. Thankfully, your English is far better than my Italian.
So where did you learn Italian?
Duolingo. I'm not very far through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you should practice so you can go Italy when this pandemic COVID is gonna finish. So you're gonna get some real food.
Yeah. Well, that's why a couple of podcasts back, I had another Ryan on here, and he was saying that a friend of his only messages him in Te Reo Māori, and that's helping him to learn Māori. And I was like, oh, I should start doing that with Francesco. And is it Tomasi? Is that right? The spotting vet?
Yeah. Spotting Tommaso. It's he's from it's a little bit far from my region. It's Vicenza, not far from Vicenza. But yeah, every Italian has the different accent according to which region.
Yeah.
So I don't know if someone asked me to learn a real Italian, where are you gonna go? Because probably Tuscany, because it's where everything comes from.
Yeah.
But it's another type of accent. So
yeah. I was watching Godfather 2 last night, and so there's when not Al Pacino, Robert De Niro is going back to Corleone. Of course. It was good though, because I was not having to look at the subtitles so much. I was still reading the subtitles, but I was picking up a lot of what they were saying. I was like, oh, this is exciting.
I think it's just practice.
Yeah. And what's good on Duolingo now is they've just, or in my one, I don't pay for it, but they've just added in conversations. So it's a bunch of conversations that you sort of follow through, and then they ask you questions in. And so, yeah, it's helping. How'd you learn English, or just from school?
School, but then I met my wife, and she said I was awful. I don't know. She had so much patience with me at the beginning, because was like, she said I couldn't understand a thing, but I suppose she was really attracted, because I don't know. So anyway, that's the reason. Like, we now home we speak English. So
yeah.
And she's angry because I don't speak enough Italian and French to my daughters, and she said that then, and I just taught you English, you're not teaching back any other languages, and she saw this stuff. So, yeah.
So where does the French fit in for you?
The French what?
Where does speaking French fit in for you?
That's another another dramatic part. I did 3 years at college. Then nothing at all. High school, nothing. So, and then I moved after the university, and then I came here. I reached France. That was my first job, and I didn't speak any word of French. Only things I could do was yes. Yes. Every question was yes. So, and that was tough. And then I tried to learn by myself, but I was so exposed. Everyone. Okay, I had a colleague that was Italian. He helped me a lot, but then I was with him, so I was out with client. I was doing the vet job, and I was tough. But that's the best way to learn, I suppose.
So. You said 3 years of college. What was that doing?
Before high school, we have 3 years of, I don't know if it's the same things in New Zealand school.
I see.
So I say college. Yeah. And before, and high school, I continued just English. That's 5 years after what the 3 years of French. But it was, basic French. I couldn't remember anything. So that was tough.
Awesome, man. So Francesco, for those that don't know you, who is Francesco today? If you're a Kiwi hunter, and you're following Blood Origins, you've probably seen some of your work, that beautiful In the Name of Tahr design you did. You're currently wearing a
Oh,
Everest
that's another one.
Tahr.
This is a personal one. I did some things. I love to do some graphics about outdoors, and sometimes I say I want to just wear a hoodie like that, and so I make my own, and that's it.
So who are you today, man?
I mean, you about the
Like
project you mentioned.
Who you are, and what do you stand for? You know,
Tricky question. So today, I'm here in France, and I moved here in 2006 after the vet university degree. That was what I wanted to do. So today I'm a rural vet working in central France and enjoying the outdoors. I started to hunt when I reached France as well. So I love the countryside. The countryside is where I decided to live because I want to be like most of the time I want to spend with nature and the two activities. If you want the rural vet job and the outdoors hunting, it's what really makes me connected with nature. Before I did a lot of wildlife photography, and when I was studying vet medicine, so it was a lot trekking in the mountains. So today I'm just a vet in rural France, lost in the middle of nowhere, and trying to join nature as much as I can.
And so, what does a rural vet look like in France? Big animals, or what do you?
Yeah. So this area is most of the animals we are doing checkup and monitoring. It's cattle, so beef in this area. So this is what is called the Charolais breed, the white cows, and we have also a part of sheep for meat as well, and it's what we say that our clientele it's mixed. So we have probably 80% of large animals, cows, and the rest of the percentage is small animals. So we do more. It's kind of 360-degree vet job. So it's good because it push you to reach so many different sectors. So yeah, but I prefer the rural. Yeah, the tough one.
But then I see you on your Instagram, dressed up in scrubs, exhausted most of the time after being in theatre. What are you generally operating on? Are you bringing in big animals into theatre, or that's the small stuff?
Every vet at this clinic where I'm part of does like everything. So of course some of us are more specialized in specific things, but for what concerned me, it's rural. Most of it is C-sections and everything connected for delivery. So C-section, prolapses, uterine prolapses, or any kind of wounds and a complication connected to the delivery. For small animals, we do most of it. It's like neutering, castration, wounds, or even osteosynthesis. I don't know how you'd say that in English. I'm not really used to all the vet terms in English, breaks bones. The simple one. For the most complicated one, we just ask help for some vets that are, they have some structure that are more specialized on that, and even neoplasia, cancers. We do most of all intestinal surgery. That's what I published the other day in the stories. There was a dramatic one, that one, and the basic ones and some little bit more tricky.
Yeah. I think it was during COVID, maybe you had that sheep that had been eaten or bitten by
Wow.
dogs. What was that?
Yeah.
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 How common's
It
that?
was,
Like that, we don't experience too much of that over here. Like the odd time, a weasel or a stoat might have a go at sheep, and then there's the odd wild dog around. But yeah, how often is it for you guys with foxes and wild dogs and wolves?
yeah, it's a really sad reality, because when I published that showing, I like to show what is the work from the field, so people can realize what is happening out there. And most of the time, there are some people that don't realize when they are eating a piece of meat what there is behind.
Mm.
The sad thing is that, a lot of people ask me, that was a wolf, and actually, yeah, wolf, they do a lot of damage, but this is not the area. There are a lot of wandering dogs, actually.
Mm.
But even dogs that belongs to owners, they start to taste something about, a sheep. The sheep are all over the fields, and probably the instinct, the time the dogs are trying probably to chase as a game, and then when he sees what it is, that he can't stop it.
Mm.
So yeah, happened to this breeder. These things happened 4 times
Mm.
during the last 2 years, and yeah, I killed more than 15 sheep. So moral, it was a big shock in the moral status of the shepherd, because at the end they found the dog. They knew who was the owner, and that's the difficult part. Because there are all the different authorities that gets in, and then no one can get a decision. No one can say you have to do this. So at the end of it, to show what really happened, the guy was advised to go to a vet. They are called behavior vets. So the guy bring the dog and say, actually, can you analyze my dog if it's really a dangerous dog? But to me personally, it doesn't bring anything anywhere, because you are analyzing a dog that probably in that room is not going to show you anything. If you analyze that dog probably in the field with the sheep, it's going to be different. So yeah, it has to be contextualized. So I don't know. So probably now they put a fence, they attach the dog, and danger is still there. So you never know when it's going to happen again. And the dog knows totally where are all the sheep. It's just like 2 minutes from all the fields, even less.
Yeah.
So
it's that's something quite interesting you said about like all the people that get involved. My boss was explaining to me that bureaucracy comes from France, and that means that everybody's got to have or the committee, whoever shows up, has a say and has to come to an agreed decision, or else nobody can tell one person what to do. How does that feel as an Italian trying to put up with that?
It's so frustrating. And when I got here and in France, to say, from the Italian background, and say, oh, we are not the best in bureaucracy, Italian, because I have to say, most of the time it's chaotic,
Yeah.
It's like layers of, it looks like a video game. So you have to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this. Oh, probably you have to go back. It's a video game. So bureaucracy is a video game for what I experienced, because all the job experience that I had, it was in France. But when I came back in France here, when I reached France, and of course for my job I had to do some papers and stuff, I was like, wow. It was like, entering Narnia. It was like, what the hell is this? So, but I think every country has this type of problems, especially because today we are so many in this world, and everyone has a voice. So it's not easy, and I'm not saying that I have the best solution. So I'm part of the problem.
Well, what do you prefer? Decision by committee that takes forever, as you say, goes forward and back and round and round in circles, or Italian chaos? What's better?
No idea. I have to say that sometimes in my experience, because we work with the eye services, vet eye services. We are the vets on the field, and then there are eye services that, you know, there are those that, you know, coordinate the work of the vets. And I remember there was a critical situation where was some, you know, people that denounced owners of horses because they were not well kept, you know, and didn't feed the horses or whatever, this guy. And it was like me and the eye services. And what happened is that I had the authority to say, this is happening the wrong way. It needs solution. And then the eye services took solution. All the horses were moved to another area straight away. That was probably, I said, actually was fast.
Yeah.
And the horses now, they're having good life. So it depends on the situation. It's not really that easy, but that was like, okay, something at work. So, but it's not often like this. It's not often like that. Probably it depends on the degree of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. So, Kieran Island over here that runs the Educated Hunter and Ultimate OE, he's often talking about the moral dilemma that him as someone who's got a wife as a vet and him as a hunter comes across to some people as a bit strange. You're taking that one further, and you're the vet that hunts. Where did the hunting and where did the looking after the animal health come in, and how do they marry up?
I received this question a lot of times, and I remember those. I mean, my family is a family of artists. And my father is a professor of art at high school. My mother as well. Now she's retired, so we don't have the hunting background. And when I started to hunt, it sounds a little bit strange in my family. And I remember when all those, you know, we are from South Italy, all those dinners. There's a lot of people. And I remember they said, "Oh, I saw you hunting," and then it was a big things, a big, you know, question in the middle of the table. And it's another one and just started the conversation, say, "But you're a vet, you save animals." And say, how do you explain in the middle of a dinner with all the family? You know, that's tricky. So it's because we have a stereotype of this profession. Is the man that, you know, goes in the field and save animals? Yes, it is like that, but not 100%. I mean, the vet is that I don't know what you call it, but probably that connection between the human health and the animal health. So he's in the middle because he has to ensure that everything is happening the correct way about the animal is checking, that no, it's not passing to humans. Because this is what we have to do this is our priority. If something happened, a big disease, I mean, I want to be drastic, but something happened and a disease that spread to humans and it'd be dangerous, we're going to burn all the carcasses and the animals. So, and this is one point. Second point is that ensure the health population, the health in a wildlife population, it's totally different than, you know, save a cat or of a cow. You know, you don't have the red deer comes to you, look, I have a problem here. Can you fix it? You know, how you do that? So it's impossible. So how you do your part, like you're in the room checking a cat for the wildlife. In my opinion, you do even through hunting, because the hunting is like, if it's done in the correct way, is the direct connection that we have with nature, monitoring the animals, taking the right animals to ensure that the population is healthy. So it's what is called today conservation. But, and this is what I'm trying to push even with my project on Instagram, and trying to see an hunter, try to, you know, portray that picture of the hunter, that when he's on the field, he's taking all the possible data that exists, you know, so people can see that hunter actually is that man that's collecting data when he's harvesting an animal. It's so much important, because if you think about how much you will get from an harvest and an hunter, you can understand the age, you can understand the category, you can understand the body condition score, you can understand if the animal was weak, if it was something that make him sick, something like that. You can collect that. You know, he can touch the animal. That's the important thing. He touched the animal. So if you are like, when I was a wildlife photographer, I didn't have that connection because I cannot get that data. I can't. I need to touch the animals to provide some information about the population that I'm out there.
I love it, mate. I've had Cam Speedy on here, and that's one of the things that he's really sparked my interest in what I'm doing out there. I have an undergraduate in anatomy, and in that I did reproduction. So doing the post-mortem and then listening to you talk about the post-mortem with Tommaso, obviously getting a bit more aware that, hey, you could be the intermediary from the bush to the population of parasites and illnesses. But you know, that was another new education. But yeah, like you say, when you're doing the breakdown, actually having a look and trying to record and you know, the Sika Foundation started doing JAWS. I know the Wapiti Foundation does JAWS. They're looking at getting really good data around the herd. Just before I spoke to Cam, they'd done some photos of the animals, what they were browsing on, and all those types of things. So, yeah, I think it was your old lecturer that was talking about how, as hunters, we should really be recording and reporting to someone, and that's where Tahr Foundation has started their app, and these Sika Foundation and Wapiti Foundation have your sort of recording your hunts. Sika Foundation, you go on their website, it's set up with the help of SCI, Safari Club International, and it's just now a matter of us as hunters entering in that information. What for you? Why do you think that's really important in your words?
I think that today, I mean, the last interview podcast that I had with guys, for example, we have spoken about this big pressure that we have on hunters from the public opinion, and it's a sad situation. And what I think is that if we trying to translate the image of the hunter in what we're talking, just according to what we're talking right now, that will be a huge step, a huge jump. Because if the hunter is that collector of information, it totally changed the story out there. Because then I'm not just like a killer, because this is what people think about what a hunter does on the terrain, but I am someone that is actually on the field and trying to you know, I'm monitoring the population, because with my harvest, with my data, and then there is the data of my friend, there's the data of the other guy, and there you can completely make and screen an area. You can understand what is happening there. You can make even easy example. The first hunter that get, for example, a Tahr with keratoconjunctivitis, you know, do a sample, send to university, make a check, and then you know what is happening. Is the Tahr getting these from sheep, from domestic animal, or something is developing in the Tahr population? Because you never know what is happening in the wildlife. Never know. For example, there are like a recent study on the Alps, on chamois, that they find out that there's a virus that is the cause, one of the causes of the keratoconjunctivitis. So, and this could be really important. It's the impact is huge.
So are those animals blind? They have completely scarred up cornea, or?
It depends. It depends what it depends on the degree of the disease. It's really contagious. Can spread to the two eyes, and then you have step by step. You know, it probably, you know, the pathology can stop and just leave a scar on the eye. The animal's still okay, But on the other edge, some animals can even develop like how you call the ulcer on the cornea.
With a viral conjunctivitis or keratoconjunctivitis, you can end up with a pseudomembrane. So basically, their bulbar conjunctiva and their tarsal conjunctiva stuck together, and so they can no longer blink. So even if their cornea was fine, they now have an exposure keratopathy, so they're unable to blink anymore, and again, then they go blind.
And then at the final step, you have that kind of corneal ulcer. Then the eye is gone. Eye is totally gone. So I can understand that for a wild goat, how important it is. Most of them, they don't just die on infection. They die because they drop. They just fall from the edges. So, and that is, the impact is huge. I have when I was in October with my friend Ulrich, the people know him if they're following him on Instagram, we had an amazing October hunt with the world bow hunting. The second Tahr that we got, he had keratoconjunctivitis.
Right.
And I don't know, probably can explain why he got the arrow, because was the only one that hesitated when he passed next to him. Is a theory. And then I receive other pictures of hunters, on social, especially during that when the Tahr culling started, and we did the project with Blood Origin. So I started to speak with a lot of hunters. I received pictures of bull Tahr with keratoconjunctivitis that they're recent. So you understand that how important it is. If you're trying to understand what the most important pathologies of the wild goats in New Zealand, I tried even briefing with Lovari. I asked him if there is some studies about pathologies, and there is actually nothing. There's no research that is recent, and you can understand how research you have there, how many animals you can analyze. Even an animal that doesn't have keratoconjunctivitis, it's good to get a sample, because you can understand if they are, what type of population, bacterial population is in the hide. Probably is there already, and it will, spread when there is a stress condition. But to handle this discussion, to me, it's important for one reason. One is to understand the interaction domestic and wildlife. Second, if people want to understand really concrete stuff, really concrete, imagine one owner of a private land safaris have the keratoconjunctivitis spreading. He's a totally bankrupt for him. So, and if it's going to spread like tomorrow, what is going to do? Because there is nothing that some kind of prevention. We already did this. It's bacterial. So you already know the situation. You are prepared. You're gonna say, okay, we're gonna try to kill all those that are probably have the signs, and trying to keep this group, or isolate in a certain way, or just kill the mob, or whatever it is. Because if it's gonna spread, you're gonna have years and years of this Alexander problem. The loss, I don't know, quantify that, but in some alpine areas, it was bad. It was really bad.
Mate, that's what makes the cull really frustrating, Like, geez, that they've got all these carcasses. They could look at so much, post-mortem, so much stuff. It's like eyes, kidneys, livers, lungs, heart, body condition, fur, parasites, ticks, lungworms, gutworms. Like what you say, what's in this population? How are they getting on? Are these just like these fat, fit, resilient animals that are just like absolutely crushing it out there? And so that means they're living like their best life. They're not under any pressure from the ecology. They're munching away. They're healthy. They've got what was your friend's name that studied the Tahr?
You mean the French professor?
Yeah.
I have Italian connection, and this was only the university in Italy that did all the studies.
What was his name?
That
you interviewed on the podcast?
Oh, that was the Professor Lovari. but then
Lavari.
he didn't study the
He
this
did
pathology.
Himalayans one,
Yeah,
eh?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He did just like the study on the Himalayan side, but it was like an ethologist side. But actually, he wasn't connected with my professor in Italy because they are friends. And he told me that if you start to study these animals in New Zealand, this is what he said actually in the podcast Lovari. He said all this information are the same. I mean, it could be good for the population in Himalaya because he said in Himalaya you can't study the Tahr. You can't. You have to stop the studying them because they didn't have the authorization to put the hands on Tahr. He said we can't touch Tahr on Himalaya. In New Zealand, how many you can touch?
Well, you can go kill maybe 20,000 of them if you want to.
Exactly. This is what they're doing. So, and you can imagine how much data there is that is just wasted, and that data could be useful even for the population that are living on the Himalaya.
Yeah, I know when I was listening to your guys' conversation and he was talking about the data, I was just like, whew. So that brings us back to our responsibility as hunters, being the person getting the data, isn't it? Like the app is there. There's no excuse. So how would you reiterate that importance of engaging and using something like an app, something that's already there?
But then you're already with another problem here that we mentioned the bureaucracy before the starting of this podcast, and now you're seeing what happened actually. There's another problem.
Yeah.
I mean, now you fix the problem, that situation of wildlife management. There are so many Tahrs. Someone is saying there are so many, and you have so many sectors that are trying to interact because they want to eradicate at the end. So you see, that's another. Who's gonna take the right decision? So since even till now, I have to say, talking with some hunters here, they're asking me because we did that project. Said, but what is going on? Everyone is asking what's going on now.
Yeah.
About the. I mean, I've read some updates, but now it looks like so blurred the situation.
Yeah.
So blurred.
So, and I'm probably wrong too. But maybe what I'll do is I'll put a link to the latest update, which is probably what you've read. From my understanding, they have opened up some more landing areas for hunters. And on the maps that they've produced of sightings of bull tahr, they've made that public. So I guess that means that as hunters, we have another resource to try and go find bulls and do our part. Yeah, so the complete hours are going to be shot. Some of the, I think, exclusion zones are finished down towards Wanaka area. And yeah, but there's a lot of hours. So it ended up being the 240, which was pretty disappointing. So
that's and is based on any data. That's the site is something surprising, and it's
yeah.
If you just like shot the drones on top of some areas just to do some pictures. Look how is the vegetation. Show these pictures from connected to the zone and say, look, this is what is happening there. And say, okay, let's work in that area. At least you can connect with some scientific data. You can collect with some samples, some data, some information, but there's nothing on that. And then it looks like these goats are like just goats, just like, things to drop from the mountains. There is a meaning, that's still life.
Yeah.
That's still life. It's not just something that is just eating plants. It's like, there's no respect in me. No respect.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's where if we can really get the Game Animal Council functioning, and they're being hamstrung at the moment, but and that's where there's a big push from the hunting sector in New Zealand to do it off our own backs, and then get the Tahr Foundation running along in a similar way that the Seeker and Wapiti Foundation are. And like I said, with the Wapiti Foundation, they're doing their own camera work on basins and and ridgelines and things, and looking at what's eating what, how many birds are there, and bringing back that data. Same with the Zika Foundation, looking at the pellet count, and then game cameras, is the pellet count, so pellets being deer poos, correlates to how many deer are in the region, and sort of trying to correlate those. So being involved with the research and, being in front of the research. So it's like, hey, research isn't free. As Cam said with the Zika project, it was $80,000 over 3 years, which I thought was cheap. It's still not free, and so that's where funds and funds going towards that instead of legal bills and bureaucracy would be great. This is a worldly thing. What are the challenges you're seeing? Italy, France, is it mostly around access, or is there still the same sort of get rid of things because of vectors to agriculture and that sort of stuff?
The situation is a lot different. I will say. I can speak for the north of Italy, because it's where I come from, and I have 3 years of thesis there. There was the cause of that on wild goats and wild ruminant of the mountains, so I know a little bit the situation, the health situation. What is the big change to me, but I'm not saying that could be applied in any other countries, is that a hunter, when he harvests the animal, he has to bring to a control check area. And there's some gamekeepers. They're gonna take all the data from that animal, the location, name of the hunter, and the day, and I think recently they're even trying to put just like pin the GPS coordinate where it was taking the animal. And these all being archived, so you have years and years. So and I've spoken even with a vet from Italy, that he told me that now there is a website. It's like done from followed by and managed by the high services vet, and they're putting everything on public. And there's a big data about the pathologies they study from the wildlife and stuff. So the monitoring is so important. You see, there is a regular monitoring of what is happening in the wildlife, because if imagine there's a pathology going to spread through the wildlife, it's going to even affect the domestic animals. So I have to say that the situation it's being monitored. That is the key for what I can see, and it's doing good. Those, of course, this cannot be everything could be controlled, but they're trying, and there is this kind of systems. They are data collectors, and they're good. They're working. So this is what probably other countries are lacking. That if you don't monitor the wildlife in a good way, in a constant way, probably you end up to have like this situation that you are like walking the fog. You don't know what is happening, and you take decisions. So but for example, there is every year for the hunting season, there is a counting that for each area that is done, that is led by the gamekeepers. They are in charge of that land, so they have to count, of course collaborating with the hunters, that they go on top of the mountains. It's a specific time of the year where counting animals is more easy. And this is going to be analyzed, the numbers, and then the percentage of that population is going to be taken by the hunters. There is a specific population that's being studied. This is what even in Switzerland, I was speaking with on one of the last podcasts about the situation of the ibex. The numbers of ibex is being studied. I mean, they know how many they can take, could be taken, because they counted how many ibex more or less they are on the mountains. It's a good way. I mean, even in New Zealand, I think it's a lot more difficult to count the animal. I'm sure 100%. But we are 2020 today. It's the modern age. can we just find a way how to count the animal? It's in 2020. I mean, you're in New Zealand. You're talking to me in France. You know, something here probably when I was listening to my Walkman, you know, with tape, I will never imagine it could happen. And now you're telling me that we cannot count goats on mountains? Come on, please.
Who's paying for the gamekeeper?
The state. The state is paying for the gamekeepers. They are hired by the different regions.
Mm-hmm.
So they work for the region, actually, those gamekeepers. Not all. The private reserve, for example, they hire the gamekeepers. I mean, I don't know if that's the term, but probably you should say wildlife managers. Because they do a huge work, actually, and according to some biological aspect, their work it goes along all the year, because they have to do all different duties. But one of the duties, like even to trying to coordinate and controlling the hunters, you know, coordinate and controlling them, because sometimes, you know, they are more clever than others.
So what's the provenance or the history behind gamekeepers and wildlife managers? Like, obviously you're speaking about ibex in Switzerland.
Yeah.
The thankfully for those areas, the animals hold dignity and all that sort of stuff, whereas we have this really, and Australia has the same problem, this really unfortunate label of things that have been here longer than our conservation organization, yet they're still tarred with the same brush of introduced species, and even made worse to be called the P word, which I won't repeat, but introduced species. What's the sort of provenance behind having that employed person of the state that monitors a resource, and surely there's some sort of what we call mana, but identity and revenance around animals in the mountains?
I mean, for what I know, actually, the wildlife manager, it's tricky, because probably we don't have the same term translated in Italian and also French, because in French you call like them technicien synergétique. So it's really someone is working on the wildlife, you know, just like doing this most of the work about wildlife, how to conserve, how to manage, you know, what kind of intervention we have to do on pests, on probably this different lands that have this kind of problem. So, and as I said before, most of them are hired by the state, because they have to coordinate the what is happening in that land. So those are in charge of what is happening in the land. The gamekeeper, to me, probably is more like just like a guide, you know. And for what happened in Switzerland, actually, there was, I think, more a guide. I have to just bring the, you know, the international hunters on the spot to harvest the ibex. And probably the wildlife managers, that one are trying to say, like, this is the number they have to take, can be taken. So that's, I think, the work is like done in that way. So that's why probably sometimes they say gamekeeper, but it's not the correct term, you know, because it's more like a wildlife manager, because of those are the people that have to take the decision, trying to analyze the data, and then they have to do, I mean, two of our guys are the wildlife manager in our project, Altitude Trails, and they are working for public land and private land. So at the end of their decision, they have to make, you know, a kind of, how you call it, it's not a certificate, but like, you know, a report about the study that has been done, and then according to the conclusion, the state takes the decision, but I have to pass it through a wildlife manager. Yeah, I don't know if
no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So post-mortem, what are they looking at? So as the hunter, do you gut the animal, or do you bring the whole carcass back? What happens if it's a red deer? Like, are they expected to bring full carcass back?
That's the things that I mentioned before, is that it's a big difference, because you that's up to you, but of course it makes sense to leave the guts on the spot, because that's a lot of weight, right? The other stuff, it's just, I mean, for your back, you are, I mean, obliged to bring the carcass down. You can, I mean, I'm talking for the North Italy.
Yeah.
Because here, for example, here in central France, driven hunts, we don't have this control check, centers. But in Italy, northern Italy, and if you have a chamois, for example, you have to bring the carcass. You cannot just cut, the legs, make it more easy to put in your backpack if you have 2-3 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Not for a chamois, but for a red deer, now you have to bring all the animal down,
Including gut.
Including the guts you leave on the spots, but all the rest you have to bring it down.
Like
Then bring it down to the control centers.
Heart and organs, the heart and liver and kidney.
No, you just have to bring the carcass. And carcass. Yeah. I mean, that's up to you if you want to keep the heart and the liver for some good eating.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you just have to bring the carcass, because they're gonna take some biometric measure.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time it's the mandible and the feet, the back leg. So it's what is called the feet. And then there is sometimes they do even some samples for some studies for labs. And then most of the time it's just like a biometric and age determination, so estimation. Yeah.
Are they sort of analyzing bone marrow for pollutants or anything like that?
Not that I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about what you did for your thesis.
So what was 3 years? I just did necropsy, autopsy on the 600 animals during the 3 years. There was just roe deer, some red deer, chamois, little bit ibex, mouflon, foxes, wild boars, fallow deers. So the purpose of the thesis was trying to for each species make some stats about what is the most frequent cause of death on wild ruminants was the northern heart, west heart, alpine heart of Italy. So that was interesting, but a lot painful. Because I did the work all myself, and I have to bring the carcasses from the fridge to the room, and then the back, and so using a Fiat Punto to transport all carcasses. That was like, I was wearing all my shirt and trying to be the most clean that you could, but you can imagine with 20 autopsies a day in some days, and then getting all the carcasses back in the car. And this was the car of my professor. He said, yeah, you can take it, don't worry. And all the animals with open on the back, and the animals and me with the car that's moving on there was a big is a big university, is a Torino university. And so I remember some girls that studying outside for the exams, I mean, passing with this car with all the animals dead on the back, and I was like, what? And I did that for 3 years. That was adventures, but I like it because it gave me a big view, a really big view of different species. I learned how to give the age to the different deers, the chamois. So that was a big experience. Yeah.
And not to minify wild animals, but where did the samples come from?
Okay, the sample come from different areas. So the gamekeepers, rangers, wildlife managers, they have kind of I say not a contract, but type of convention or a collaboration. Yeah, with the university. So they were in charge to bring all the animals that they found dead on the mountains, on the street, on all the land that were working on. Some national parks, some private reserves. So from everywhere. So the university the duty was like give report to every authority. I mean, to every origin of the land origin where the animal was coming from, so they can show that what happened to that animal. Sometimes was really tricky, because I mean, I was there, but as you can understand, when a wolf reached the university, it's kind of be the event for the university. All the professors came in, and then everyone, around, because it was the big event. So those moments was a little bit, tense, because wolf died, and they want to understand why he died, for poaching, kind of suspicious. But even on some deers, when you have some, wounds from bullets, that was tense, because you have to say if it was, if it was poaching, if it was something else. And I remember that was a super story. There was a big ibex that reached the university, and they want to understand, because he had a big wound here, just at the chest, at the level of the heart. And that was one of the biggest male that this national parks had. So the kingkeepers were there, the rangers were there, and they wanted to know if there was a poaching, the cause of that was poaching. And actually what happened, but this autopsy was led by one of the professor, because, that was tricky. You leave a student to do something like that, but it's normal. The ibex just sleep on a rock, and the point of the rock just boom got into the thorax, and he killed him because he got the heart. It was like, wow, how could that happen? And that's how tough is this terrain for these animals. There's no pity, there's no mistakes, and that's why when you mentioned the Tahr, the being called like that, those animals, they did, I mean, to be honest, they did a shitty life. Or because, I mean, and when you look at them and say on those tops, you do a mistake, you're dead.
Yeah.
You just dead. And you can have keratoconjunctivitis, you can have a hunter that is chasing your butt, you have an helicopter, if someone asking me, you'll be in a Tahr next life, no idea.
Maybe in the Himalayas, but then you've got steeper, more extreme, and then you've also got predators.
Yes, this is snow leopard is gonna jump on your back. So
eat you
that's
from the
why.
arsehole out.
Yeah, that's why I feel like, wow, just an animal like that. I'm not saying there's a category A. This is the elite of the animal that should be respected more than others, but at least a little bit dropping them with a helicopter, to me looks just like a scene from Far Cry 5, and just leave on the screen of video games, but not bring that to reality. Don't bring that to reality.
Yeah, that's a good sentiment there. You're saying about poaching, and of course it's everyone's interested to make sure that it's not poaching, or if it is, like, shit, we've got something to do here. What's the access like, and is poaching common?
You mean what was the public opinion on that?
Yeah.
That's as soon you have something like that, all the anti-hunters they come for osmosis, like this, when there is just little bit, because actually what happens is that poaching and hunters, probably for a lot of people, is the same thing. Hunters are poachers. This is what is being portrayed for one of the reportage in French done by that that guy. I don't want to put the name because I hate that. So there was reportage about lynx, and lynx, they found some 2-3 lynx are being killed.
Mm-hmm.
And looks like the fault is hunters.
Mm-hmm.
There's not. Poachers and hunters are totally different people. And sometimes it's tricky. I mean, you can make in some people opinion, you can just say a poacher is totally different. Hunters hate poachers. Good hunters hate poachers because it's a totally different
ethos,
philosophy. And but what I remember in Italy was like every time there was a problem like that, it was pointing to hunters.
Mm-hmm.
Pointing the fault that was a hunter that did that. Was the bullets was a hunter. I'm sure that poacher comes from a hunting background, but you can't say it as a hunter. And the moment that you're poaching, you're not a hunter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's sad. The public opinion it's playing a big role in how these things are viewed. And last example, it's a red deer in France that they just ran out of the forest, and they found it was like not that far from a city. It was in a peripheric area of a city. It was just like, I think some building are, that it's just some building areas and some work on in progress. And he was just like exhausted and just lay down with all the tongue coming out. And it's all the animalist, association, they came in and they push all the dogs with this chasseur and save the deer. Mm-hmm. And this now it's on every news, these things. Mm-hmm. So this made me laugh for different aspect, because if it's like that, we have to understand how many animals they die on the street every year. So you want to save animals? Yeah. You leave the car in the garage.
Yeah.
This is, I remember in my thesis, the 90% of roe deer was killed by car accident.
Mm-hmm.
So stop the drive, man. Stop the drive. So, and doesn't make sense. Of course, it's like the chasseur is a bad thing, it's barbarian. Yeah, we can discuss hours about that. But at the end, what is trying to happen there is that they don't want to see hunters, because they think the hunters, they did a big damage on the population. But again, there's no data. This is like trying to understand how many animals have just died on the street, and then you will see that probably a car makes a lot more damage than a gun.
Mm. On the sort of devil's advocate side, not for the people trying to throw hunting under the bus, but for the poacher, how much of that do you think is stemmed from desperation in terms of feeding family? And it always interests me that the thing that people did go to when they're desperate is like rustling from stock or poaching from the edge of private properties or private hunting properties. I just always find it interesting that that's where the most bang for the buck is, and you see all these survival shows, they do nothing, and if they can organize a hunt, and they're effective, then they win. It's always interesting. How much do you think drives the poaching is socioeconomic, like people not able to access hunting, needing food and wanting protein?
I think it's like again, it's depends on the context. I don't have any experience about the African reality because I've never been there. But if I ask myself and my family's dying, I'm in a situation that is like what I could do to save my life. I don't know who belong over lives. I would say I'm not trying to take them the food where I can. So that is it's a dramatic reality. So the African, I think it's I don't know. I don't know. There's even economic, you know, to get a lot of money, you can try to change your life, even with, you know, selling something that you poach. But probably at the end, but it's what is getting the money for your family, or you want to get out of your situation. It's not easy. It's not easy. I'm probably I'm the last one to discuss about that, because I don't have any direct experience. I can tell you that for what the situation of what happened in Italy, then when we found some wolves, and I seen the reportage of the lynx being killed by hunters, and that is this poaching as well, is a different reality. It's a different reality. Because I think most of, not most of, but most of the time it's part of, there is an ideology involved, and there are some hunters that when they see a predator, they freak out. This is one thing. There's also another set of realities about, there are some areas where the wolf is not controlled as well, and they do a lot of damages on shepherds, and shepherds, they get frustrated, so they could even come from there. Because I remember that my professor did some studies on wolf, and they did put a radio collar, and there's a lot of time they find a radio collar just like, you know, on the floor, on the ground. That will be, you know, broken. It's not like, you know, just drop as it's supposed to. But so you see that the reality of so many different reality, and could be for food, could be for ideology. So it's really, it's not easy to, you know, to criticize. Of course, it's not the right things to do, but I don't know how many of us, they experience really, you know, poor condition, or you know, just like seeing your family's just dying, whatever, doesn't have food. But I don't know, probably for what I can say, yes, all those animals being killed in Italy, it just doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense.
You're saying about how when the wolf comes in, everybody wants to be there. What's the sort of, and as you said, you don't want to, you know, what's the best animal, but what is the sort of status of a wolf in Italy? Are they rare? Are they threatened? Are they, you know, being encroached on?
Population right now, it's good. I mean, it's good. It's even spreading a lot. Even in France, it's the same things. That's why they start to call some wolf in France. But the same thing, it's as, again, from that guy that I didn't mention before, they did another reportage about a kill of lieutenant. It's in French. It's like, no, it's, I don't know if it's, you can translate that, but it's someone has the authority to do a legal shot on a wolf for culling. Okay, so just color, and he did one during a night, and there is a video footage done by a wildlife photographer that was following this group of animals. That was done in the total legality, but it was a big scandal for so many reasons. For so many reasons that they mentioned that the shot was done be not far from some trackers. They put the tent there. It's not true. They were enjoying and screaming when the shot was successful. And then there is a shepherd, a young shepherd, that actually replied to this reportage, and he did an awesome job of just saying the reality of a shepherd on top of the mountains is tough. They are, you know, they do a tough job. They have to check the animals on top of the mountains, and for example, they have to even bring the water on top. And it's during this month of summer, it's really dry, so they do a bloody hell of work. So when they see a wolf there, they try to protect their herds, and that's normal. So the people that do the reportage, most of the time, the people that work for TV, they don't have any clue. They are not exposed. And the wolf, for most of the people that are not exposed, like the animal savior, blah 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 blah, all those association, it's like a status symbol. The wolf, we can't touch the wolf. Like the ibex is the same thing. In Italy and France, we experience the same thing. Ibex and wolf is like the elite. You can't touch the wolf. You can't. So I don't know why. I don't know why. If it's just a stereotype, if an image that comes from, you know, from movies, from film, from whatever it is. But to me, it's another species. It's a part of the food chain. If there is too many, we have to understand that it's not possible. There are some shepherds that are doing a good job because they, at the same time, they not just keep the sheep, they maintain the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
The mountains look like that because their agriculture is doing their part as well. And who maintain the lands? The guy that are working in the lands, right? So there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work.
And you said how someone gets the authority to cull the wolf.
Yes.
Is there a debate around selling that as a license?
Normally these people work for the states, and the hours they do at night to monitoring and try to you know, to follow the groups and see what are the movements, and they have a specific numbers of the colleague is really studied. The night they go there, they're not paid, so these are all volunteers.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, going back to the poaching thing, they don't want to encourage the status, especially if you said that, oh, don't touch the wolf.
Yeah. But again, when the guys say that they are screaming about the success, the shepherd replied that actually those guys spend a lot of nights there, and when the shot is successful, that means that some nights they're gonna go sleep because these people work during the day.
Yeah.
And the night are going, you know, spending out. There's a whole hours they're doing for free. So of course you're happy if you're, you know, you one on night you can spend in your bed. So that's all how it's translated. It's all about interpretation.
Yeah.
If you don't interpret it in the correct way, you're gonna make huge damage.
Yeah.
Huge damage to the public opinion.
Mate, you've just released a video on your YouTube, Silent, of you hunting a roebuck. What's the context for that hunt? You got permission to go onto that land? What's the population of roe in that area, and what was sort of the agreement with the landowner?
So that is a land that belongs to a farmer. So the farmer receive some tags every year, and so I give him one tag a year, and I'm allowed to hunt in his land. I like this interaction, breeders and you know, hunter vet, because you know it's all those information that we can understand what is happening around his farm. And he has a good population of roe deer. Just in the first day, I think I encountered 3 roe deers just in the end of the morning. I have hunted in that land 2 years before also, but with a rifle. And I always, I remember always to have, you know, connect with so many animals. So population is healthy. They develop really nice antlers, these deers. You can understand the structure is nice. They have character. So it's another sign that they are healthy. And I didn't find any sign of pathologies, any signs of, sometimes I even take an intestine piece. I did in previous years to understand what kind of parasite they have, because, you know, cows, they have some kind of common parasite with deer. So, and then it's during summer, you are allowed to do this kind of type of hunting, you know, like a stalking or, you know, but then it's changed, and most of the years driven hunt is something that I don't practice, but it's just because of I enjoy the stalking, and I enjoy the individual hunt. This is just because most of the time it's bow hunting.
With the driven hunt, they're in stands with rifles, are they, or they also?
Yeah, this is the line of shooters, and then there is the trackers that push the animals to the line of shooters. I understand that it's not easy to hunt in these areas where there's, like, you know, forest. This is hills and forest, so it's really impossible, for example, to put down the numbers of wild boars.
Mm-hmm.
And or the rest of the year I hunt in a private reserve that's not that far from my home. And that I started this private reserve because the interaction with the gamekeeper. That's we have a good relationship, and then what happened is that he's really open to discover more about the population health and all the different aspect of biology. So I like it, and then it allows me to understand what is happening on a sample of a population, because this road here, most time they stay inside. There are more deers that came in than deers that get out, so you can understand what is happening. It's a 500 hectares, sorry, and it's pretty big land. They had a big impact on the roe deer population due to parasite for 2 years, and now the population is healthy. They are a little bit suffering of the dry season, the summer, but it's nice. It's nice, and I mean, I'm the only one hunting roe deer there, so.
With wild species, do you find the resilience is quite high? Like, say, 2 years ago they were suffering from parasites, now they're healthy. Does that resilience show up pretty fast? Or do you just think the burden's gone?
It depends on every land is different.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if we're going to take the example from this population, what happened is that at the end we understood that the problem came from the cow.
Right.
then when the breeder started to treat the cow more regularly, the population started to be healthy.
Yeah.
And the only thing was, he said, the gamekeeper told me, it's easy to understand what is happening every year if your population went through a really difficult year or not. Is because doing the driven hunts, they do some driven hunts on pheasants. This is the most, the big business of this reserve is pheasants. So, and they do this like silent driven hunts, they just push slowly, all the pheasants to the lines. And there are some dogs. And he says sometimes the dogs can just catch a deer, just a young one. They can really just jump on the back and catch a deer. And he says when this happens, it's a sign that the population has some problems, because there are some weak individuals. And other years, he said, never happened. So all the animals are just healthy and they can run away and escape, and there's nothing. So depends on the land, and probably if the body is exposed to a good quantity of parasite, it will get the immunity system ready to just fight the parasite constantly. But if the the parasite is huge, and for example, the animal is going through a stress period, there's going to be a crack. Yeah.
And I guess the other thing, if the sort of vector from the cattle to the roe wild population, they're grazing on the farmer's pasture, which is, I guess, is why they want the numbers controlled. But if he's treating his cows, and then so there's not the egg burden in the pasture, and the roedaka then also having a lesser burden, then their population has a lesser burden, and so forth. Would that be your sort of understanding of why, when the farmer looks after his stock, the wild population also reflects that?
I think that in my experience, when I was doing my thesis, for example, I was actually in direct connection with my professors. One was the professor in charge of my thesis, and another professor that was collaborating with the project, because was from the same section of the university, studying on the parasitology of the wildlife and the different pathologies connected to the wildlife. So, and I was really, really into the keratoconjunctivitis, and they did a lot of studies. Probably most of the studies done in Italy, was led by this professor. So what the last conclusion, I mean, most of the cases, there was the keratoconjunctivitis came from the sheeps, I mean, or just domestic animals. So, and I think it's most of the time there is this direction, domestic to wildlife. Because if you see the density of the animals, domestic, the groups are more dense than the wildlife.
Yeah.
And I think because I tried to get back, for example, when I mentioned the Tahr keratoconjunctivitis, I mean, the Tahr that we harvest in October, it was really close to a fence.
Yep.
And the other side, it was sheep and Angus. And then when I asked the question to the other hunters where they where if the Tahr that they harvested was far from, they said no, it's pretty close. So you see all these coincidence has to be studied, but again they're bringing back to that the theory that actually the direction is like domestic to wildlife.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. That's a good hypothesis that hopefully someone listening out there wants a thesis in New Zealand, Lincoln University. I'm looking at you, Massey. There's something to check out.
Really? Oh, I will be so happy if someone starts something like that. I'll get my airplane
even a target.
fly.
Yeah. I think also that's what a lot of people need to understand about New Zealand with the whole 1080 thing and the culling of ruminants is this whole protecting the agriculture industry from the likes of tuberculosis. That's the main reason or the argument, I guess, of dropping 1080 indiscriminately is that we've got to protect one of our major industries. And now with the loss of tourism currently, our major industry is again agriculture. So from that perspective, when you take off your hunting hat and you look at economics, or also for me, farming, I have a massive interest in farming, particularly deer, and you got to look at it and go, we don't want that vector of tuberculosis. But then it's interesting you bring up the argument that maybe it's going the other way.
Yeah. That's why again the monitoring is so important. I remember that during the thesis I have to check the wild boar for signs of tuberculosis because there's like the reservoir of tuberculosis. And sometimes I have to send some samples to the labs because it was like I don't know, some from the external exam you can just think it probably is one of the case, but you have to always perform with the labs analysis. But there were so many wild boar and we didn't have so no, it was 0 cases. But so that's why monitoring is so important. It's the key. The key.
Even the all the deer that were shot in the remote experience zone in the Kaimanawas, I think it is, for the Sika Foundation, again, that was done in collaboration. Sika Foundation, I think they're called Land Care Research, and Osprey, who are the people behind the sort of 1080 management. No Sika deer with 1080. So again, that's that argument that, hey, if you've got the data, and hey, you might find the old one, that means that you've got to do more work. But when you've got the data and it's on your side, that's fantastic. Like that's a real benefit awesome. Of doing the data.
That's awesome. I think that the hunting community has to move towards that the direction. I've seen that now. For example, there's some project that they're founding some kind of infrastructure in Africa and et cetera. I think this is awesome. This is awesome content. This is awesome initiative. But we need to fund some research because look what happened. I don't want to be pessimistic, but look what a tiny virus it just collapsed. It made collapse all the society for just small virus that the COVID. What happened to us? Look what is the situation today, and then imagine that something it will come out in the next years that will be from a wildlife. because I mean, still the theory is that the wildlife, this virus comes. So imagine it's going to come from a ruminant or something else, because you never know how the virus like mutate. And that's why I say the hunters sometimes, and even the Professor Lovari say that in the podcast they have with him, they say that sometimes hunters they are so focused on aspects that today as they don't have to be the priority. You know, even the stupid things I say that with spotting bad, I say wear gloves, guys. You know, we never know what is going to happen. And a day there's an animal is a carrier of a new virus, you're going to spread to the society. And then the society is going to just say that's your fault because you're a hunter. So those are reality that we don't understand, that we are not thinking. But that's why sometimes I'm getting probably get out of topic today, but you know, it's a passion, and talking to you just opened my mind again. And we point the fingers every time towards anti-hunters, and anti-hunters, but let's like clean up the shit, or you know, that it's at your home before pointing the fingers.
Yeah. Yeah, that who's pointing, how many pointing back at you? Yeah, I think there's also, like I say, with wearing the gloves, there's a little bit of sort of when you go get your blood pressure, that white coat syndrome, that the person with the white coat on is professional, they're the authority, and I think maybe hunters with a ground sheet and gloves for harvesting, you know, they've killed the animal, then they're harvesting the meat. That sort of brings this not justification, sort of authority to what you're doing, that yes, I am here about the meat, I am here about looking at the animal, understanding its impact. It kind of backs up what you're saying when you say, yeah, you know, I go hunting and I care about the animal and I care about the ecology, I care about the population. People go, but you killed it. It's like, yeah, I did, but I also, like you were saying earlier, took all this data, took all this understanding, and I respected everything about all of this. You know, you know, and I sitting here in Sitka gear, like it takes a lot of time working, and then that handing over the money to put yourself, because you know that that's the best gear to get the best result out there. You know, it's those sorts of things that people don't understand, how much effort and thinking and preparation goes into, you know, maybe pulling the trigger on that animal, and then to see us then follow through after that event, like I say, bringing the whole carcass out, looking at it, examining it, recording it, giving it to the proper person that can handle the information. Like, wow, that really backs up what we're trying to say. As hunters are conservationists, hunters care about the animals, hunters care about the population. So I mean, what is Altitude and Trails all about? Like, give us the summary of your page and the podcast and what you got up on YouTube. Like, it's bloody awesome, man.
Well, thanks, man. So really appreciate it. Your project started in 2017 with my friend in Italy. They've been hunters a lot before me. Or the other trees, you know, Giacomo, Giorgio, Davide, and we all studied in the same university. The two studied for being to finish their wildlife manager degree. Davide did a vet study with me, so we ended just saying, let's took some pictures of our you know, trips, and you know, of us, and I did some kind of t-shirts, and it was the period that I did some graphics, and I did some t-shirt that was like a tribute to some wildlife species, and it was mountains animals, and I called it Altitude and Trails, and then I said, look, for this project would be nice, you know, we call Altitude and Trails, and I started. And then what the first idea was trying to show a little bit some different image, and trying to bring the sensitivity of people towards other different topics according to hunters, hunting, and what is. So And then the project got, you know, have evolved, and now today I can say that project is just, it's about that outdoors, that connection with nature, of course, through the eyes of a wildlife manager and the vet. And why the name today makes it a lot more sense. Why altitude and trails? Because it's not just really the mountain, but it's every one of us have to experience this kind of climbing in life. Even you're not really climbing a mountain, everyone is climbing in this life. It's a mountain or not, you're climbing. Whatever you're doing, everything I can call that it's climbing. So there is a mountain everyone has. And why altitude? Because everyone will settle at that specific altitude. You're going to stay in the forest, you're going to stay up to the forest, you're going to stay at a high peak. It depends on you, it depends on your qualities, it depends on your skills. And that's why we say sometimes reach your peak. Doesn't matter that that guy is on top of the mountains, you're going to stay in a subalpine, whatever it is. But if that is the best for you, keep it at that altitude. That's why we say that. And trails, why in trails? Because all our different connections and paths, they bring the best interaction of life. Like me and you talking this podcast, this is a trail. And the trails that bring us to discover other grounds is the same thing. So altitude and trails is just about, if you want, a metaphor of life. That's it. It's not really about, okay, people said, but it's just about hunters and stuff. Yeah, this is what happened in nature. And then nature, I think, is still the base of every life. We still have to put this in our mouth, in our mind, in the mouth also. If we keep evolving and technology is taking most of our society and our, you know, routines, if we gonna lose that nature roots, I don't think where we're going.
Mate,
that's why.
So much about that. I love especially the sort of micro meaning and then the expanded meaning. I love that. It's a bit like me with the Stag Raw, life less ordinary, and also the why of why I do everything, and that's to improve people's lives, help them see the world to their best of their ability. And so, you know, that can be specifically as an optometrist or broadly in everything else that I do. So yeah, I love the sentiment that you guys have with altitude and trails. So they can find that on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Just
have to type altitude and trails and everything is going to pop out. I mean, we're trying to push a little bit more YouTube in the last period. So we have a lot of content that it's still on my computer. I trying to, you know, find some time to finish the different projects. There is one big film about New Zealand, that October hunt.
Nice.
And it's done, but you know, always something that has to be edited before, you know, and through your mind is going to be like just perfect, but then you're going to find other mistakes when it's going to be published anyway. So we're going to launch this film soon, and it's probably one of, I don't know, I hope it's going to be one of best production, just because we put so much time, and that was really, really, really nice, epic, frustrating. It was all of it in one trip.
That's what it's all about, mate. Before we go, had you seen the New Zealand falcon when you were here in New Zealand that you drew for Justin, or was that just an image that he gave you that you made into an awesome photo drawing?
It's an image. Yeah. I mean, it's an image that he gave me, but like, when I was during the trip, I experienced that some moments and see this PC that just wow. That's why I connected with the picture. When he gave me, and I say, oh, I remember. And then it's a magnificent thing. It's that's why, you know, I like the interaction they got with Justin, and it's not just about a picture, it's just not about a drawing, but it's something that is coming out of that collaboration, and it's such an inspiring hunter, because he has good thought, he has a super nice philosophy, It's easygoing, super humble man, and why? I can draw for ages for him, I think.
Yeah, wicked, mate. So I don't know how many of my podcasts you've listened to, but what I get people to leave us with, it's somewhat philosophical. It's the thing that always shows up in your life when things are going well, when you're in flow. It could be a saying, it can be a way of life, it can be a quote. Yeah, what sort of doesn't do you wrong when things are going well, this thing's showing up.
Something I tell myself when there's really, really shit.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think about those stars on top of the mountains that I think I'm doing just like probably 5% of the shit that I experience on top of that, this time of winter. And we live in such luxury age today. I think it's giving the best from every one of us is the only minimum things that everyone should do, and do it in a good way. I mean, when I say give your best, or sorry, as I say before, reach your peak, find your path, is like doing in a good way. And what I say good in a good way means like stop criticize other people. So no, it's when you criticize, it's like, I don't know, was properly Lao Tzu. Let's say that when you criticize a thing, you're part of the problem if you don't give it solution. So I think that's a good philosophy, trying to be humble, don't criticize, and then there is so much to do out there, so much.
Beautiful, man. This has been bloody awesome. I'm stoked that we got to have a chat. We sort of dabbled on talking about it during COVID and through all the Tahr stuff, and so it's been really wicked to sit down and get this done. And thank you so much as well for all the work that you've done over in Italy on behalf of New Zealand hunters around Tahr. And like you said, lots of people have asked you what's going on. Hopefully this might give them a little bit of extra insight, but we really appreciated it over here when we saw international people getting behind it. So yeah, and as you said, and I've said, and Justin said, and I'm sure many people have said, it'll all come around again in the other direction. And we're here for you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the podcast. I love so much for talking.
Brilliant, brother. I'm going to press stop. Cheers.